Welcome back. In case you're just joining us, this is Daybreak Africa from KAFTAN Television. I am Kareen Edet. So today we are looking at imperatives of women participation in politics. And with us today is Zigwai Tagwai. She's a development practitioner and a good governance advocate. Good to have you on the show today, Zigwai.
Good morning, Zigwai.
Good morning, Ezekiel.
Daybreak Africa.
Okay.
All right, so to begin with, women's participation in governance. Why do you think it is necessary for female to participate in governance?
Okay, that's very key question to ask. First thing for me is representation. I believe that as human beings and as individuals, whether you're a woman or not, first of all, we like attention and we like to be heard. We like to know that people understand us and that they are willing to make intentional effort towards ensuring that whatever it is our needs or our desires or wants are, they try to address them. So coming down to women participation in governance, that is very key because there is no way that you would be able to have a full representation of your needs, a full representation of your challenges, a full representation or projection of things that you believe in when you're not involved or fully participating in governance. Of importance also is the need to have people who are able to drive policies, drive decisions that affect a particular people, which is the women folk. We have the saying that goes, only the person who wears the shoes understands where it hurts. And if we all believe in that, then it's right to say that if you're not a woman in a particular position, you cannot correctly project the needs of that woman. So women's participation in governance gives room for wholesome representation. It gives room for diversity inclusion. It gives room for projection of the voices of people who are not able to speak up for themselves. Because even aside from the issues of gender, we also have issues that society refuses to speak about. And sometimes you need people who are willing to break that protocol or break that stereotype to be able to speak about these issues. That is when women come in. We have issues of children, we have challenges when it comes to issues of, let's say, child marriage. Not in every society or not in every context would you find male folks truly advocating for issues that affect these, because at the end of the day, it is the women who are more emotional, as we say. It is the women who get to spend more time with these set of people. It is the women who thoroughly understand the issues that affect these particular sets of people and are willing to be vocal about it because they feel the burden more. So why should women participate in governance or politics? Because there's a need for wholesome representation. There's a need to project the voices of those who have not been heard. There's a need for diversity inclusion.
It's fascinating. The first thing you said was the need for attention. So it's more like women tend to want to get into power because they felt the need to be noticed per se. But before I go into details, let me go through the statistics I have here today. The global average of women in parliamentary positions now sits at 25.5%, reaching over a quarter for the first time in history. I guess I would say kudos to that. Now, I have a number of countries here, and I would like to talk about the level of participation, women participation in parliamentary seat and politics in the whole. First on my table here is Rwanda. The East African country is leading the world with a 61% of its parliamentary seats occupied by women. Rwanda is referred to as a role model for the country's rate of women's participation in the government. Are you still with me? Hello?
Yes, I am.
And over to Cuba. Cuba has 53% of women taking up parliamentary seats. United Arab Emirates, Arab nation, has 50% of parliamentarians being women compared to just 20% in previous years. This comes as a result of Sheikh Khalifa calling for women to occupy half the parliamentary seats in 2018. Now let me jump to Andorra. Andorra has a high number of both women and young people in parliament, as seats held by women in parliament and have increased from 32% in 2019 to 46%. Down to Mexico now. The year 2018 was named the year of the woman in Mexico, and after over 3,000 women ran in that year's election, the country achieved gender parity in its parliament. The country has sustained over 48% women parliamentarians since then. To Sweden. The country described itself as the first feminist government in the world, and equality is core to the country's values and overall decision-making. Sweden's parliament currently hosts 46% of women in parliament. Now, I could go on and on and on, but based on our time, I want to jump to the IPU's Secretary General's statement. Now, Martin Chungang said on the release of the report that increase of women's representation is not yet happening fast enough. And this brings me to my question. With all these happenings, with men talking about parliamentarian seats, Sweden being called a feminist government, and why do we still believe or still have the need to want to think women are not exactly still taking over?
Thank you again, Ezekiel. I like it when people churn out data. But again, sometimes it's really funny when we're churning out data, and the reality of it is most times we try to use data and the things that we assume are already in place to cover up for the huge gaps that we still have in existence. I won't say that all of these countries are playing the same, but I would say that the context where we have, based on your question, it's the fact that we're not, it's not a thing of just, it's not.
I would urge you, I think you're breaking.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're back.
Ezekiel, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Please go on.
Okay. It's not about just having people in positions, it's having people actively in positions. It's not about just having a face. This is not, what they call it. Oh, you said you want this, so let me just give it to you. No. When we talk about representation, we want quality representation. We want representation based on your track record. We want representation based on competence. We want representation because you know that this person is capable of delivering on the job that the person is given. And we want representation that allows you the opportunity to actually engage in the role or responsibility that you've been given and deliver on that role. Not a, what do they call it? Not being the face of. No, it's not about being the face of something. It's about actually being in a position because you are willing to work, you are committed to working there, and people believe that you can carry out that responsibility. Still speaking on, this doesn't just, when we talk about women participation in politics, it's not just about the political space. It goes way down our societal structures. If we're talking about, most times we talk about, oh, we have women representation in the parliament, we have senators, we have House of Rep members, we have this one holding, maybe some people will even go ahead to say, oh, we have maybe Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala holding a position in World Trade Organization, we have Amina Mohammed in the UN. But again, that's the bigger space. What happens to that young girl in your house? Women's participation in politics begins from the family setting or the family structure. What about that young girl in your house who you do not believe should even know anything that has to do with governance? Who all you teach is, how to take care of the house, how to carry out chores. This is the plan, just go to school, finish school, get married, get the family. You're not supposed to think too much on serious issues. It's not for girls, it's for the men. Let the men, or conversations are going on, even let's say amongst your peers or your friends, and a girl begins to give her input or her opinion about, and you're like, you say, if you know this one, why shouldn't she know it? Isn't she part of the society? Isn't it a challenge or an issue that's affecting her? It boils down to issues of schools. What are we teaching in civic education? How are we engaging the women folk, even in our educational system? When it comes to prefectship, do we still carry the stereotype of, this prefect or the class rep and the head girl or the head boy is supposed to be for the boys, while the assistants and the deputies are for the ladies? Knowingly or unknowingly, unintentionally, we do these things and we project it. This is where it starts. When we begin to place those stereotypes right from the family structure to our educational systems, we go to the tertiary institution, universities, where they tell you, for the associations in the department or in the faculty, the head of the association, the president or whatever they call it, has to be a man. Then the women cannot take the vice or the secretary. Why? And there are women who are, or females who are competent enough to take the same position and deliver. And there are women who are doing better than the male folks, even within the educational system, even within the association. There are women who are contributing and can drive issues. Women participation in politics is not just about appointments. If you go to our political party structures, how many women, people say, how many women are actually holding positions even within political party systems or structures? Let's ask the political parties. I'm not talking about what Nigerians call women leaders. When we say women leaders, what do we even mean? Are they truly women leaders that maybe their duty and responsibility is to bring to the table women issues or issues around the society that our political systems actually push forward during campaigns? Or is it women leader in quotes to just mobilize market women and mobilize youth and mobilize community people when it comes to campaign seasons? What is the women leader position about? Have you ever had a political party that has a woman as the head or the chairman of the political party? Do we have that? Do we have a working and a living women's wing in any political party in Nigeria? A women's wing where this particular part of the political party just push forward issues that concern women or issues that are brought to the table by women. When it comes to women's participation in politics, and we're even talking about the representation in governance, how many women compared to the men are actually in the governance positions, and what roles do they have? How many of us who say, women's participation in politics, then we have them, did you vote that woman in? Were you one of the people that voted? Did you have faith in that woman and the work that she has done to vote for her during the elections? These are questions that we need to ask ourselves. It's not a cover girl issue. She's on the cover of magazine. When the media, talking about the media, this is not a backlash, but as media, how do you project the woman folk? When you bring a woman politician on air to have interviews, maybe during even campaigns or elections, what questions do we ask? Are we asking the same questions that we ask the male folks? What's your idea on this policy? What are the issues that you are driving? What are the plans that you have? What have you done? Or you're asking her, how does your husband feel about this? Are you married? How do you think you're going to cope with children? How is that your business? Has she not taken the decision? How does that even compare to the issues at hand? Do you drive the same questions to the male folk, or don't they have families to take care of? Or in the society, they are not supposed to take care of their families? These are the issues. So it's not just about having people in positions. What's your idea of that person in that position? What's your support like for that person in that position? What room are you giving to the person to actually carry out their job roles? Are they just there as figureheads? Or are they there because you know that they are competent enough to carry out the responsibility and you're giving them the space to do it? When they bring issues to the table, like the affirmation bills that came out, issues that came out some years ago, 2020, do we drive them home? we accept those issues. We talk about positions, the quota. You talked about how the quota system in a country. We were pushing for the same thing in Nigeria, and it was flown out of the parliament. Why won't you have a particular number of seats for women within the parliament and ensure that, and it's not even on equal basis, and take up those roles within the parliament. That way, even when issues, it's not a competition, it's a collaboration. That's one thing we have to understand, and we're doing it for everybody, for the benefit of all. If you feel like it's a competition,
just before I go into how our political system and constitution are starting to maybe encourage or discourage a woman in power, I tend to perceive a bias in your statement earlier. Now, is it more like you actually value equal representation rather than competence? Because in New Zealand, they have a prime minister, Jacinta Ardern, yeah, I believe, definitely, yes. And her counterpart at that time was even a fellow female. I can't remember the name exactly. But from the way you speak, it's more like you believe things should not be handed over to the woman because she's female. I think things should be done out of competence. If there's an organization and they believe the male folk does it better, hand it over. Because I really doubt if you could actually pinpoint as a person any organization or foundation you believe found the woman competent, but nonetheless tend to hand that position or that seat to the man on the basis that he's a man.
Thank you again, Ezekiel, for your highlight. But I think that if we were to replay my conversation, I have repeated the word competence and track record and over. I'm sure even me, I'm tired of saying the word competence. And at the end of the day, I know that when I was making my comparisons, and I started from education system, and I started from to political party structure, I referred to competence, and I said, aren't there women who are competent enough to also do the work? And everything I've said, I kept saying it's not just about being a figurehead or giving people the power. It is about delivering, believing the person is competent enough to deliver, allowing the space for the person to deliver. It's what I've been saying.
Okay.
So it's not a bias. It's representation, it's quality, it's competence, it's a track record. And it's the same opinion I have about women who are also in power that are not delivering. Because like I said, there are people who are in that position, but are you giving the woman the position, even if it's representation, are you giving her the position because you know she can carry it out, or you're just picking somebody randomly to say, oh, you are asking for this, so let's just give you, and you're picking someone who cannot play the role, someone who cannot deliver on the task, someone who is just there to occupy space.
All right, so as a matter of concern, speaking of competence and active representation, what difference do you think women can actually make if the table turns? By that I mean if chance is given for women to actively take over some political positions. What difference do you think things will definitely change for the better than it is now?
So it's first, I would just want to correct a notion. It's not that they're not given at all, and it's not that we do not have women who are already delivering. There are a lot of women who are delivering. And just to correct this perception again, I think a lot of times when we also see women in governance, where we restrict our opinions or thinking to just active politics. Women who are in decision making, law making, executive governance covers the whole of society activities. Governance is women in private sector. We're talking about their Oshikas, their Lucky Jazz. We're talking about people like even Hanseto Adigbite, Wimby's executive director. We're talking about people like NLB in the civil society. We're talking about people like Siamba Malu, Yaga Africa. We're talking about people like Nkosi Okwenjoela in the World Trade Organization. She's not a politician. We're talking about Amina Mohammed, the UN. She's not a politician. We're talking about so many other women. They're in governance, in economy, in finance, in education. We have Obieze Kwesili, So there are women who are delivering. So what will happen if more women who are competent, more women who are willing and able to deliver, more women who have proven over time through their works and their commitments in the space that they are now, are given that opportunity, is that they will still deliver. My push is that opportunities be given to people. Governance is about workplaces, private sector, public sector, civil service, which is the public sector, civil society organizations.
So going through your portfolio, I notice you are a development practitioner and good governance advocate with experience in project management. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, I really want to ask at this point, maybe just a little bit away from women in politics. What's your take on the system of governance in Africa, amidst the entire crisis and the entire coup going up here and there? What's your take on a system of governance in Africa? And of course, we are Nigerians, also in Nigeria.
My take on the system of governance is that every society should focus on the local context in which it exists. We do not just pick up a system of governance because it's what the world puts out. What system of governance do we practice in Nigeria? That's the question. Democracy. I get that democracy is allowing citizens' participation. Democracy is having representation of citizens in governance. But then, do we have to practice democracy the same way, structure by structure, that every other country is practicing democracy? Why do we have to do that? Do we have the same local context? Do we have the same kind of beliefs? Do we share the same kind of belief system? Do we have the same kind of traditional foundations? Before democracy started, how were our societies working? What made them effective? Because before we had the democratic rule and independence and all, we had a society that was working. We had a society where our leaders understood their people. We had each part of the society governed by the people that understood them, that understood their belief system, that understood their economic system, that understood their traditional system, that understood their religious systems. And they worked with the people to ensure that the system worked. But the issue here is the fact that most times we take up decisions or we take up ideas that we see working somewhere else and want to apply it hook, line, and sinker without carving it to suit our local context. Nigeria is a very diverse nation. Nigeria is a nation that has a lot of belief systems that may not be similar. They might look, when we say diversity, people will say yes, there are, if you go to the US, there are also a lot of people with different languages, but it's different. It is very different. We need to get to a point where we understand that our governance system has to work in line with our local context. We can't be having someone who does not understand how the system or the people think or the people live their lives within, let's say, the West, and has never been there or related, go to rule those people. We cannot have someone who does not understand how people work in the North do the same. And I'm going to use something that you just mentioned. You mentioned that I work in the areas of project management. And if for efficient project management, when you're carrying out projects in any community, they will tell you there's something like human-centered design. And what human-centered design means is that you're engaging the target community from the beginning of your project design to your work plan, to your budget implementation, to project implementation, evaluation, reporting, and feedback, like that. The whole project cycle. You do not come up with an idea and then go and just tell the people. It may seem like it will work, but it might not be what they want. And it may not work to optimum because you did not consult and because you did not understand the target community where you were going. It's the same thing with Nigeria. We cannot just pick an idea just because it works and just apply it totally the way the people where we picked it up are applying it. We have to come back home and have a sit down and understand the local context where we belong, and have an overview or a review of this democratic system that we're practicing. Democracy is a beautiful thing.
I really want to enter at this point. You said it's a beautiful thing, of course, but at some point you make it sound as if our major problem is democracy. Did I actually tend to understand that correctly?
Our major problem is local contextualization.
Okay.
I kept saying, and that's why, yes, it's democracy. The simplest explanation for it is citizens' participation and citizens' representation. So inclusion and representation. And who doesn't want that? Even without tagging it democracy, that's what everybody wants. Include me, let me be heard, and let me be involved in everything that's going on. But you need to be able to understand where I'm coming from, where I'm going to, what I believe, for that to be able to work. And that's all that I'm saying. Local contextualization. It's not everything about democracy that is happening in the modern world that you just bring. Even within African countries differ. So the experience in Rwanda, if we're talking about Rwanda, the experience in Rwanda may be something that, oh, we like the fact that one language, one everything, Tutsi and Hutu, they are now together. But yes, you could say, oh, let's use what the context that they use in making sure that happened. But how feasible is that if you're going to use everything the same way that they did? Nigeria does not have just Tutsi and Hutu. We have a lot. So how can we apply what Rwanda did by considering our local context?
Okay, so how well do you think the government, or should I say the nation, can appropriate this involvement to incorporate gender equity and equality?
So the first thing I would like to say is the issue of understanding that representation is very important. It's very important because sometimes for you to even get information, vital and real-time information that works for you as a leader or as leaders, you need to have people who people trust. And that is where inclusion and representation or women participation in governance comes in. If it may not even be representation of gender, so sometimes we see women participation in governance and all we're thinking is women issues. It's not always about women issues. You may go to a particular place, or you may have a particular issue. Maybe you're looking for someone who is the Minister of Culture, someone to put for Minister of Culture and or Commissioner of Culture or something, and you're thinking, oh, should I put this person or this person? I have a female and a male, but then maybe within that space, the person who has had the most experience in relating with people who are in that particular space of culture and tourism is a woman. Meaning that if at any point in time of your role as a leader, you need some kind of network or somebody to leverage on, she has more access. And the people that you're relating with will trust her better. So this time around, you need that representation, not because, and that woman's participation, not because she's just going to push forward women agendas, but because she has the connection that you need to make a smooth sail in your leadership.
Now, talking about our constitution and political system in Nigeria, I guess we're about talking on that issue before I think actually drift it off a little bit. How well has it tend to, should I say, encourage or discourage women inclusiveness in politics?
I think we have a very good constitution. I would say that we have a very beautiful constitution also. Nigeria has very amazing documents. When it comes to documents, we have awesome documents. It's more about implementing those documents and ensuring that every part of those documents are being upheld the right way, and that we do not twist the document to suit certain things when it suits us. The constitution is very supportive when it comes to representation. It's very supportive when it comes to participation.
I'm glad you said
I
that.
think what?
I said, I'm glad you said that.
It is. It is. I would say that a lot of times is the biases that we have, and that was why I started with our structures, family structures. I started with society. It's not always about, look, the thing is, even for the policies that we have, even for the policies that we have, um, people that make them most times might be the same people who end up breaking those policies or those laws. Why? Because a lot of times we just want to make the laws or the decisions that everybody will be okay with, but our personal sentiments and our personal belief systems do not align with those. So we still have that, and that's why I think we need to go to the point where we have value orientation. We have a balance when it comes to cultural beliefs, societal beliefs, religious beliefs. Because a lot of the times, also, the things that influence the gap in participation of women or in support of women engagement a lot is our sentiments, especially in Nigerian context or the African context. Or what's the role of a woman when it comes to culture, my culture? But there are some cultures that are more supportive than others. There are some religions that are more flexible than some others. So it's not about the documents that we have on ground, but the people who are implementing these documents. We need to be able to understand that we have a job to execute as people when we take up responsibilities and roles, and put a divide between our sentiments or our biases and the job that needs to be done.
Okay, so still on the imperative of female participation in governance, I believe for every good pursuit, there would always be those challenges. So can you list out those challenges female, or should I say females, might still be facing when it comes to governance and how it can be coped?
Okay, thank you again. I think we already started mentioning some of these challenges, but I would say that when it comes to governance, some of the challenges that we have are educational gaps. So I feel that there's a lot that would go that would be better in the education system if women stood up to the task, and if more women were engaged in advocating and participating in governance issues that have to do with promoting the female gender education. There's a lot of educational gap or educational challenge when it comes to women, and it may not seem to tie to women in governance, but except you're there, you cannot push for the benefits of your kind. And if I'm not there, or if I'm not the person that is being derived of something, I won't understand how it feels. So I feel that one of the challenges is educational challenge. Another challenge when it comes to governance, and like I said, governance cuts across all structures, is unpaid labor. A lot of times people feel that, oh, why should a woman be paid as much as a man? Or why should a woman be employed in certain positions? But imagine having a woman who is maybe an executive within that organizational structure or that company structure. I do not think that she would want, except again, in some cases we have people who are just that way. But I do not think that you would want to now see a bias when it comes to gender. You go to some organizations and you find out that during interviews for positions, the male folks are able to, what do they call it, negotiate higher pay. The women are not, or sometimes even they are offered higher, but then you never get to find out, except maybe something happens and then boom, you find out, oh, I'm on this same level with this colleague, but I'm not being paid, or I don't get the same benefits.
Right. At this point, we are almost out of time. I think time is really posing a constraint. Do you have any parting words generally, say in 2 minutes before we go off air?
There is a need for value recognition of individuals. Every person in a position of power, every person in every sector in Nigeria comes from a home. And I believe that a lot of the biases and sentiments that we have, or stereotypes that we carry, are being molded from the homes that we come from the society and communities that we belong to. And except we begin to educate ourselves and equip ourselves we cannot push for the things that helps to build our society. When we're talking about women, again, it's not a competition. Women are a part of our society. Women are a part of our homes. They are a part of our associations. If women are being given the opportunities to engage, everybody gets the benefit. Imagine that one of those affirmation bill issues, a woman being able to marry a foreigner and then get citizenship. It's your children, it's your grandchildren, it's your generation. A woman being able to have indigenization when she marries and take up roles, it's a contribution to your own state. Imagine having a woman with competence come to take a leadership position and deliver in your state. Your state people get to enjoy. They're not deriving anybody of anything by giving her that position. So value education. Women should build capacity also, because there is no way that you will not have capacity or competence and you expect to be put in a position. When you also get into the role, leave a good track record so that others that are coming behind do not lose out because you failed to live up to your responsibility.
All right, thank you very much. We hope to have you next time on Daybreak Africa.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right, viewers, you heard it all. Like you rightly said, it's not a competition, but there is need for competence from both folks, say the male and the female, because nothing will be handed over to just anybody because you're a man or because you're a woman. There's definite need for competence at every point. Now, this one, handing over to the studio, we have so much more for you. I remain Ezekiel, Ogar.
And I am Kareen, Edet.